This is the first in a series of 3 videos on the topic of evaluating sources. While we're looking specifically at how to evaluate reviews of performances of Long Day's Journey into Night, what you're going to learn in these videos really could be applied to, should be applied to all of your research, and not just in this class, but in any college class. Being able to find good sources will speak well for you. Certainly your professors will be able to judge the quality of your sources. So this first video is on the topic of evaluating publications. And in the course of this series, we're going to be looking at 3 different things. Actually, we're going to start with the publication itself. Then we're going to talk about the author in the second video, and then the content of the review in the third video. And the objective here is to judge the quality and credibility of the review. How do we know that it's a good review? What makes it appropriate for an academic audience? Those are the questions we're trying to answer here. So with the publication, what we mean by that, I'm just going to sort of lay out the terminology here. The publication is the location where the review originally appeared. Most reviews are published on websites or in periodicals, so the publication is the name of the website or title of the periodical. And of course, those things would be italicized on your Works Cited page. The author, of course, is the person who wrote the review. This person might be a scholar, someone who's devoted their entire career to the study of American drama. Could be a journalist, someone who reports on current events for popular news organizations, or maybe just a theater fan, someone who likes Eugene O'Neill and writes occasional pieces in his spare time. And then finally, the content of the review. The content is the text of the review. That would be the observations, the reflections, and judgments of the writer after watching the performance. Content is often shaped by the writer's knowledge and past experience, and we're going to talk a great deal about that in the third video in the series. We're going to spend some time in this video talking about the publication. What are we looking for when we are doing our research to find quality sources? So first, you need to determine whether the publication is popular or academic. Find information about the publication. And investigate any organizations that are affiliated with that publication. This is especially important for academic journals. They are often affiliated with different professional organizations. So let's look at each of those criteria a little more closely. When you're writing for academic or professional audiences, it is always best to use sources of information, publications that they will trust and respect. When writing for a college class like this one, you're writing for an audience of experts in a particular field, your professors and classmates. Therefore, you should always look to academic sources first. And this becomes more important the farther along you get, particularly in your upper level, junior, senior level classes, certainly by the time you're in graduate school, if that is if that's where you wind up. When considering a potential source, the first thing you should determine is whether it is popular or academic. And most reviews are published on websites and in periodicals. To determine whether a publication is popular or academic, there are some telltale signs to look for, and I've talked about this before in the video series on Works Cited entry formatting. Did you find the review using Google, or did you retrieve it from a database? Again, if you found it using Google, there's a greater than 50% chance that it's a popular source. If you retrieved it from a database, just flip that around, there's a greater than 50% chance that it's a scholarly source, an academic source. Flashy graphics and advertisements are usually an indication that a publication is popular. And another clue is how often is the periodical published. The process of peer review means academic sources are published less frequently than popular ones. And by peer review, what I mean is this describes a process by which articles get reviewed by experts before they are published in the journal. No academic journal wants to be embarrassed by publishing a bad article. So usually editors accept submissions and then they send those submissions out to experts to read before the journal agrees to publish the material. And this review, this period of review could take several months or up to a year or more, depending on how many times the editor sends it through the process. So because the peer review process takes so long, journals don't get published as frequently. You can check to see if the journal title or the publisher of the journal has a website. In the example you see here on the right, I Google searched a periodical that I subscribe to titled 18th Century Studies, and I went to the website. Actually, the website is not the 18th Century Studies website. It is the Johns Hopkins University Press website, because Johns Hopkins University Press publishes this particular journal. So I found some information about the journal on the Johns Hopkins University Press website. I already know from my Galileo search that this journal is peer-reviewed, but looking at the website, right away I see a number of details that assure me that this is indeed an academic source. The title of the journal is 18th Century Studies. The site includes a picture of the cover of a recent issue of the journal, and it certainly doesn't look like a popular source. That wouldn't sell. That cover wouldn't sell much. In a magazine rack at a supermarket or a gas station. Another clue is the publisher is an academic press, the Johns Hopkins University Press. So another clue that this is an academic source, the publisher. Although with periodicals, remember you don't mention the publisher in your works cited entry, but knowing who the publisher is certainly gives you a good clue that you're using an academic source. We can see the name of the editor here. This would be the individual responsible for organizing the contents of the journal. We also see the volume currently in press is volume 55, at least at the time that I took this screenshot, and the number of issues per volume. And quarterly means it's published 4 times a year, roughly once every 3 months. And again, those are all pretty good indications that we're looking at an academic source. So in the red box there, there's a short paragraph that tells us about the purpose of the journal. And I quote from it here. It's a little small on the screen, so I quote from it that it publishes different modes of analysis and disciplinary discourses that explore how recent historiographical, critical, and theoretical ideas have engaged scholars concerned with the 18th century. That sounds pretty academic to me. And again, a good clue that we're looking at a high-quality academic source. We also learn that the journal is affiliated with an academic organization, the American Society for 18th Century Studies. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But let's say that I wanted to include some of this information from this website in my paper. If I wanted to quote from it, I would need to include it on my Works Cited page. Using the OWL, I treat it as a page on a website. So I would go to electronic sources in the online writing lab, and I would look for what's the information that I'm going to need for my Works Cited entry if it is a page on a website. And here's the entry that I created. The title of the web page, 18th Century Studies. The title of the website, which is the container for the web page, in italics, of course. The year of the copyright, the URL, and then my access date. So like I said, I was going to go to the webpage for the professional organization, the American Society for 18th Century Studies. And so this is the homepage for it. And I wanted to learn more about this organization, just in case there's information that I might want to use in writing a paper. So the Society's mission statement is right on the landing page, right on the web page itself. And we're told there that the organization has existed for over 50 years, since 1969, and identifies among its members literary scholars and writers, historians, theorists of gender, race, sexuality, disability, nation, and empire, philosophers and political theorists, art historians and artists, and so on. So again, just another bit of evidence that supports my use of the journal 18th Century Studies. Shows that it's an academic source affiliated with a scholarly organization, and has been for over 50 years. So very credible. Again, if I wanted to include any of this information from this webpage in my essay, I would need to include the website on my Works Cited page. In this case, using the OWL, I would format my entry as an entire website. Since it's not a page on a website, it's actually the website itself. And my entry would look like this. So there's the title of the website in italics. There is no individual author credited for writing that paragraph on the website. So the title of the website, the year of copyright. Don't forget, when you're on web pages and websites, the year of copyright is usually located somewhere near the bottom of the page. You'll have to scroll down and look for it. Then the URL, of course, and then the access date. And that concludes the first video in the series on evaluating publications.